This is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Small Business Update with Tom Sullivan, exclusively on ASBN.com.
Hey everyone, I'm Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of the U.S. Chamber Small Business Update, exclusively right here at ASBN.com. On today's show, we are so pleased to be joined once again by Tom Sullivan, who's the Vice President of a Small Business Policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. So Tom, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule there in D.C. to be with us here on the show.
Jim, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you for having me.
Great. Can you give us an overall update on the state of small business economy today?
Thanks, Jim. As you know, we survey our small businesses every quarter with our partners, MetLife, and our latest data show that things are going pretty well out on Main Street. We actually had our index tick up in its most recent survey. Now, like to step back a little bit, certainly that we represent about 3 million businesses across the United States, and that includes the members of about 1,600 state local chambers of commerce.
Wow.
So when we talk about surveying small business, a little hard to get on the phone every day with several million small businesses. So what we do instead is we take surveys on a quarterly basis to kind of keep us on track for what we are advocating for in Washington, D.C. But again, our latest data show that things are pretty good on Main Street. Specifically, when we ask small businesses, what do they think they're going to be doing, or how do you think they're going to be doing in the next 6 months? We actually had one of the highest readings ever. 71% say that they're expecting increased revenues in this upcoming year, which is real positive news for us.
Yeah, that is fantastic. No question. And things look pretty good out there. I mean, in terms of the inflation is now down around 4%. They said the average is only 3.6% over the course of the last, 40 years anyway. So we're at least within the hunt now. And I mean, obviously we need to bring it even lower. Of course, unemployment speaks for itself. I mean, it's at an all-time low and it continues, that continues to just go along very nicely. So, but let's talk a little bit about the stock market. Talk to us about what's going on there.
Well, Jim, when I was describing that things are pretty good on Main Street, I sensed that you were kind of waiting for the other side of the coin. And unfortunately, there is another side of the coin. And you asked about the stock market, and there's a little bit of a difference between what's going on in the stock market, which actually looks really, really good, and what small business owners are experiencing on Main Street. So on the one hand, small businesses are doing very well. They are optimistic about the future. They're looking for revenue gains. Our MetLife Small Business Index shows actually that about 71% believe they're going to be increasing hiring in the next 12 months, all very positive. However, the lowering of inflation doesn't seem to be consistent with what small businesses are feeling. And so when we surveyed small businesses with MetLife, they said that inflation still tops the list of concerns. And Jim, this is 6 consecutive quarters in a row when inflation has topped the list of concerns.
Right.
So while the good news is that the stock market is responding to lower national inflation, the unfortunate truth is that small businesses haven't necessarily felt that relief yet.
Yeah. I could see that. And it makes a tremendous amount of headlines and such. So it's top of mind with consumers as well. So what impact is the stock market having on small businesses overall? Is it such that they're dialing back because you've got 71% that feel they're going to be making more money?
Well, any good news in this economy, I think, bolsters the optimism of small businesses.
Sure.
So from that sense, it's good. I mean, I don't know of any small businesses that look at the ticker all day and are kind of wondering how their kids' college funds or their retirement is doing. They just don't have the time. And I don't mean to be a smart aleck about it, but that time component is so important. And we see, while inflation is the top concern, that next concern is finding, hiring, and keeping employees.
That's
And
right.
our friends at the National Federation of Independent Business, in their latest survey, they show that that concern has actually caught up to concerns with inflation. So when we talk about time, or quote unquote extra time, in addition to the 70, 80 hours a week that most small businesses are working, if they can't find workers, it means they've got to do it themselves.
That's right.
And we see that type of pressure kind of beating down these small businesses day in and day out.
Right.
And many times when you ask me, how are small businesses doing? I say, on the numbers, they're actually doing really, really well. But for some reason, they don't feel really good.
Yeah.
They don't feel like they're doing well. And
Sure.
a lot of that has to do with their sense of inflation, also has to do with rising interest rates. We asked small businesses how they're feeling about interest rates. We saw a jump, an uptick of 10 percentage points of small businesses saying the rising interest rates are pinching their growth plans. And in fact, 50% of those small businesses said that they have had to put plans for growth on hold. And that's a cause for concern.
Yeah, that is. There's no question. Has there been any reporting on any credit tightening? Because obviously small businesses rely on being able to get money and get capital. Has there been any indication that there's been a tightening of lending out there?
Jim, I wish I could give you like really easy yes, no questions, because on the one hand, yes, credit is tighter. It's harder to get.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, small businesses don't want to go into a recession. And please keep in mind, the majority of small businesses still feel as though we're either already in a recession or on the brink of a recession.
Sure.
They do not want to go into a recession
Right.
over their head in debt. And so demand for loans is down a little bit too. Now, we're nervous a little bit about when that equation shifts a little bit and the demand for loans starts ticking up without credit loosening, because in that situation, you're going to have a lot of small businesses really desperate for cash. Now, the good news, though, is that over the past 4 years, with PPP, pandemic recovery, and then some bank failures, you see small businesses with better relationships and prioritizing relationships with their community banks and other lenders at an all-time high. And so that actually bodes well for small businesses that are looking for capital to grow.
Yeah, that's good. That's very important. I mean, it's the capital with small business. It's like their oxygen. They need it, and if it's not there, they're in trouble. In terms of the hiring, it is difficult. Many of the small business owners that we interview here at ASBN have reported the same, that in their world, it's very difficult to find good talent and retain that talent once you've hired them, because obviously we're in such a tight market that somebody could go to work for you now and a month later say, hey, I got another company over here that's willing to pay me $5 an hour more with a signing bonus, if I leave and go over there. It's very, very tight, right?
It is tight. I mean, I'm a little bit biased. I think that small businesses are the best places in the world to work.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of leapfrogging over the reality is that labor's tight for everybody.
Yeah.
The bottom line is we need more workers. And I am fascinated by the statistic that says if every unemployed worker went to work, we still have 4 million job openings in the United States.
Isn't that
and
something?
So that's where we shift into really our largest priority here at the Chamber of Commerce to address workforce shortage, and that is immigration.
Yeah.
So Mike Zaffaroni runs a landscape supply company down in Jacksonville, Florida. I think you and I have talked about Mike before.
Yeah.
For the first time ever, he actually got 10 H-2B visa workers and is tremendously excited. These are hardworking young men who actually come here on visas. And we want to support Mike and make that process easier for him and the workers year after year. There are dozens of kind of tweaks that can be made to the existing immigration system that will help solve the problem of worker shortages without upsetting the entire apple cart of immigration debate, which can be so controversial.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a very hot topic, but that's great news that there's some relief on the horizon there, at least a way to go. Hey, lastly, can you update us on tax policy? As I understand it, a bill is expected to be introduced into the House around keeping the 20% tax deduction for small businesses. Talk to us about that.
Jim, so often we get caught up in this anger and partisanship, maybe just because it's better news and exciting about seeing people fight with each other. But the reality is that Republicans and Democrats are actually coming together on issues like keeping the 20% deduction that so many small businesses have taken advantage of permanent. And you know that early 2026, this will go away.
Right.
And right now, in times of economic uncertainty, we really need to make that 20% deduction permanent. So Congressman Smucker, a Republican, Congressman Henry Cuellar, a Democrat, have joined together with a massive group of bipartisan legislators in the House of Representatives to introduce legislation to make that 20% deduction permanent. So it just gives me a sense of optimism to see Republicans and Democrats working together to get this over the finish line. And we're pretty optimistic that with that type of momentum, we'll see the permanency in place before it expires at the end of 2025.
Yeah, and in large part because of the efforts of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I'm sure. So keep up the good fight there. You're also urging Congress to restore research and development, R&D expensing. Talk to us about that.
Jim, you and I have talked about this a couple of times. This was legislation that everyone thought was a done deal with the type of bipartisan support that it had right at around Christmas time last year, at the end of the year. And for some reason, it just it ended up on the cutting room floor when the final film of what passed Congress last year was taken. So we're hoping to resurrect it off the cutting room floor, put it back in, and really get back on track to reward businesses that are investing in research, development, and innovation, as opposed to penalizing the way that the current reversal is. So it is a problem. It is embarrassing that we did not solve it and keep that immediate expensing going. But as you said, the U.S. Chamber, along with our partners, the state and local chambers of commerce and the business community, are all united in trying to get a fix to the research and development tax credit.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's so important to so many small businesses out there. And as you said, we need to be able to compete on a global scale, on a global platform. And that fuels that, right, in a very big way. So.
It does. I'm lucky to work with a manufacturer out in Salt Lake City, Natalie Caddis. And, she was devastated to hear that she does not have immediate expensing. And so she's been a champion to fix that snafu. And there are millions of small business owners like Natalie who really need this research and development expensing situation fixed.
Yeah, for sure. Tom Sullivan, VP of Small Business Policy for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for coming in to ASBN.com for this incredible update that you provide us with. Small businesses are counting on the U.S. Chamber to fight the good fight every month. So thank you so much for giving us the update.
Jim, thank you for letting me on and providing the message that is so inspiring for our country and for small businesses.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Small Business Update with Tom Sullivan.